Hi everyone, I am Praveen Chetty and I welcome you all to this video class. In this video class, I'm going to talk about transition age and its features. Before going to the transition age, let us look at the age that preceded or the age that came before transition age. So that is 18th century age, and we call that as a neoclassical age. Neo means something new. Classical usually refers to the famous Greek and Roman writers. So this age was called neoclassical age because they were the writers of this age followed the Roman poets like Virgil, Ovid, Horace, and others. This age is also known as the Augustan age because these Roman poets, Virgil, Ovid, and Horace, they lived in the kingdom of Augustus, who ruled over Rome, and the age of 18th century is also called as an Augustan age because they followed the Roman poets of King Augustus. Then it's also referred to as age of Pope, especially the age from 1700 to 1750. That is the first half of 18th century is refers to as the age of Pope because he was the most representative poet of the age. Then the second half of 18th century is referred to as the age of Johnson or age of Dr. Samuel Johnson. So this age is also known as the age of reason and enlightenment because people were growing more scientific in their thought, and they were having this rational spirit in their thinking. So it's called as the age of reason and enlightenment. It's also known as the age of prose and novel because those two forms were making their beginning. Uh, Now, coming to transition age, this is not the exact beginning. It is, that any age starts slowly, and this time period, 1760 to 1798, is only an approximate demarcation of the age. Um, this age comes in between the previous age, that is the Augustan age or neoclassical age, and the age which was starting in 1798, that is the Romantic age. And this age, transition age, it developed in the last decades of the 18th century. Now let's look at what is transition. Transition generally means change. In Kannada, we call parivartane. So the word tells that it is not a sudden change, it is a gradual evolution or a slow process from one age to another. So here it's a movement away from neoclassical, and it was moving towards romanticism. So it's also known as pre-romanticism because the writers used many elements that were seen in romantic age. Then this age was affected by the French Revolution and the American Revolution and the Industrial Revolution of the time. If you look at the features of transition poetry, we can see that the transition poets were reacting against the classicists, or they no longer modeled their writing on the writers of ancient Rome and Greece. So they started a kind of liberalism in literature. Liberalism in Kannada means udarate. So they were not sticking to any rules and poetic conventions, but they believed in their individual poetic inspiration. Then um, the writers of this age, they reacted against reason. We know that the previous age is also known as the age of reason, and it was the writers of this age were not purely intellectual. There were elements which were which were against intellectuality like passion and emotion and imagination. Uh, and then uh, the writers of this age, they were looking for new subjects. So they wrote about the village or the countryside. They wrote about nature, and the earlier subject matter was urban life or the city life. And now there was a shift from the urban to the rural life. And the poets, they were not drawing room poetry, which was referred to the poetry of the urban center, and now they showed more interest in the rural life or the village life or the rustic life. Then there was more importance given to individuals than society. So you can see that there were a lot of writers writing subjective poetry based on their emotions and imagination. Then we also see that there is an interest in the Middle Ages. The Middle Ages is the time in Europe from almost 6th century to 15th century. And during that time, Europe had a different setup. There were kings, there were peasants, and a lot of things were happening at that time. And the writers of this age, they looked to Middle Ages for sources, and the emotion and imagination and supernaturalism and mysticism are all the features of Middle Ages. Further, if you move, you can see that some of the poets of the transition age are also known as graveyard poets because they they meditated on death, and they talk about skulls, coffins, and epitaphs. Epitaphs are the writings on the graveyard. So you can find lots of poetry written on that. And then um, the writers also were moving away from heroic couplet, which was the standard to be used in poems of 18th century. So the poets of this age were looking for new forms, and some of them were turning back to Spenserian stanzas. Then, as I said, there were lots of poems written by poets which contained their own imagination and emotion. So there's a lot of subjective poetry. And finally, the significant feature of this transition poetry is that many of them used simple diction in their writings, especially the poems contained language of the masses or the common people. So these are some of the features of the transition poetry. I hope you enjoyed this class. Thank you very much.